The sky cracked open like a wound. It was not a normal morning on Earth, though people called it that. The sun rose with an orange glare that seemed to scorch the clouds themselves. In the city of Solhaven, life carried on as if nothing had changed. Cars honked, children laughed, and the cafes filled with the aroma of fresh bread. But in the quiet corners of laboratories and observatories, the wise whispered warnings no one wanted to hear. Dr. Alara Miles was one of them. She stood on the observation deck of the Helios station, her hands pressed against the glass as the first tremors shook the building. Her dark hair clung to her forehead, her eyes wide but sharp. "It's here," she muttered. "The shift. It's happening." Her assistant, a young and idealistic man named Elias Wren, froze. "What do you mean here? How bad can it be?" Alara turned slowly, her gaze cold and certain. "Worse than we imagined. The energy readings. The anomalies. They've been growing for decades. Humanity ignored the warning signs because they were convenient. Because life is easier when fear is buried. But now it will reach us whether we are ready or not." Elias swallowed, feeling the chill creep into his bones. He had studied under Alara for 5 years and had never seen her this unsettled. "Then what can we do?" She shook her head, a fragile shadow of doubt crossing her face. "For some, nothing. For the rest, we fight. That is all we can do." Meanwhile, in the streets below, people noticed the change but dismissed it. Birds flew erratically, their cries sharp and urgent. The wind carried an electric tang that made skin prickle. Some looked up at the sky, puzzled. Others laughed nervously, thinking it a passing storm. Among them was Mara, a nurse who had spent years caring for the sick and wounded. Her instincts screamed danger, though she couldn't explain why. "Something's wrong," she whispered to herself, gripping her coat tightly as the first tremors rolled through the streets. She saw children stumble, adults clutching their heads as waves of unease spread like wildfire. Across the city, alarms began to hum faintly in the background. They were not warnings, but signals. Signals that the world as humanity knew it was no longer safe. At the edge of Solhaven, in a hidden bunker beneath an abandoned research facility, a small council gathered. Leaders, scientists, and soldiers who had seen the pattern forming for years huddled together in silence. There were no words left to argue over. Every face told the same story. The moment of reckoning had arrived. In that room, Alara and Elias joined them. The hum of machines filled the air, almost as if the earth itself had a pulse, beating with a rhythm that belonged to something beyond human comprehension. A man named Gideon, once a soldier and now a strategist, leaned forward. His hands were calloused from decades of training, his eyes steady. "We've warned them. The councils, the media, the world itself. We've begged them to prepare. And yet here we are. We must assume humanity cannot be saved without sacrifice. Are we ready for that?" Mara's voice, quiet but unwavering, cut through the tension. "Sacrifice is meaningless if we do not protect those who still have hope. Even if the cost is our lives, even if the world changes forever, we cannot falter." Alara nodded, a flicker of pride softening the sharp edge of fear in her gaze. "Then we begin now." Outside, the city shivered. Windows rattled, streetlights flickered, and a low hum rolled across the horizon. The world had been whispering its warning for centuries, and humanity had ignored it. Now the consequences were unavoidable, and somewhere deep within the chaos, a fire began to grow. A fire born of human resilience, determination, and fury. It started with small tremors. They grew into waves that rippled across the land, splitting streets, uprooting trees, toppling monuments that had once been thought eternal. People ran, screamed, prayed, but the earth had no ears. And in the midst of it, Alara, Elias, Mara, and Gideon looked at each other, their eyes reflecting a singular truth. They had ignored the warning, and now humanity's fury would be unleashed, yet, even as fear gripped the hearts of millions, a spark of defiance glimmered. For the first time, humanity would face an adversary it could not negotiate with, not through politics, not through diplomacy, not through ignorance. It would be forced to rise, to fight, to endure, and the fight had just begun. The tremors were no longer whispers. They had grown into an unrelenting roar, shaking buildings and rattling hearts. In Solhaven, the streets were chaos incarnate. Cars lay abandoned in twisted heaps. Glass glittered like jagged ice beneath a sky that had turned the color of fire. People stumbled, screaming, gripping each other in desperate attempts to find stability. The warnings had been ignored for too long, and now reality demanded attention. Mara ran through the streets, her boots pounding against cracked asphalt. She carried a small bag with medical supplies, but her eyes searched for more than just the injured. She looked for signs of hope, small pockets of humanity still clinging to order. A child cried alone near the edge of a collapsed building, the dust of destruction settling on his hair. Without hesitation, Mara scooped him up, wrapping him in her coat. "You're safe now," she whispered, though the words felt fragile against the chaos around them. High above, in the crumbling Helios station, Alara and Elias watched the city shake from the observation deck. The panels beneath their feet vibrated like the heartbeat of a living creature. "It's worse than I thought," Elias said, voice tight with panic. "The readings are off the charts. The tremors? They're spreading, faster than any model predicted." Alara's eyes, dark and unwavering, remained fixed on the horizon. "The planet is responding to our neglect. We treated the warnings like fairy tales. We laughed at scientists. We ignored the smallest signs of imbalance. Nature doesn't forgive, it adapts, and we are about to witness its full fury." Below them, Gideon coordinated efforts on the ground. Soldiers and volunteers scrambled to stabilize shelters, guide civilians to safe zones, and contain panic. He barked orders like a man possessed, but even his discipline could not quell the rising tide of fear. His own hands shook, though he would never let anyone see it. Every crack of concrete, every scream, reminded him of one unshakable truth. Humanity had been blind, and now it was vulnerable. In the midst of the turmoil, a strange light appeared on the horizon. It was not the sun nor any known celestial body. It flickered like a warning, pulses of blue and silver tracing patterns across the sky. People stopped, staring upward, momentarily silenced by awe and terror. Alara turned to Elias. "The anomaly is visible now. What was theoretical is tangible. Humanity has never faced anything like this, and yet we cannot give in to fear. That would be our undoing." Mara, carrying the child, joined a group of survivors seeking refuge in an old metro station. Families huddled together, their eyes wide with disbelief. One man shook violently, mumbling prayers to gods he had long stopped believing in. Mara knelt beside him, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone," she said softly. "None of you are. We will get through this, together." But the world outside refused to pause for reassurances. Streets fractured into jagged chasms, rivers swelled and swallowed entire blocks, and a distant rumble signaled the first collapse of a city skyscraper. Smoke and debris spiraled into the sky like dark banners, announcing the end of normalcy. In the command bunker beneath the abandoned research facility, Gideon, Alara, and Elias convened with the council. Their faces were drawn, lit by the flickering glow of monitors that mapped destruction in real time. "The situation is deteriorating faster than anticipated," Gideon said. "We must act decisively. If we do not establish control now, there will be no organized resistance later." Alara nodded. "The anomaly is not just physical. It has a will, a rhythm, and it reacts to us. If humanity is to survive, we must understand it before it overwhelms us entirely." Elias's voice trembled. "Understand it? How can we understand something that defies every law of science we know?" Mara's words from earlier echoed in Alara's mind. Sacrifice was meaningless if hope was lost, and hope was the one thing humanity still had the power to wield. Across Solhaven, citizens stumbled through devastation, yet small acts of bravery persisted. A firefighter carried a trapped elderly woman from a collapsing building. A teacher shielded her students from falling debris. Strangers shared water and blankets amid ruins. Humanity's fury was upon them, yes, but so too was humanity's resilience. Alara looked at Elias, determination hardening her features. They thought ignoring the warning would save them. They were wrong. But we can still prove that humanity is not broken. We can fight, we can endure, and we can rise. Outside, the sky continued to burn with unnatural light. Tremors rattled every corner of the city, and yet amid fear and ruin, a single undeniable truth resonated. Humanity had been challenged, and now it was awakening. The first day of fury had begun, and the story of survival, of defiance against impossible odds, was just beginning to write itself. The city was no longer recognizable. Solhaven, once a bustling beacon of progress, now lay in fractured silence. Streets had split into jagged scars. Buildings teetered like broken teeth, and a strange electric haze hung in the air, crackling with energy that made skin prickle. People moved cautiously, eyes wide, hearts pounding. Every step carried the weight of uncertainty. Mara had found a temporary refuge in an old underground subway station. Families huddled together, sharing stories, warmth, and hope like fragile shields against the chaos above. She pressed her hand to the chest of the little boy she carried, feeling his rapid heartbeat and whispering, "We'll get through this. We have to." Above ground, the anomaly pulsed in the sky. Waves of light shimmered like ribbons of silver and cobalt, radiating a power that defied comprehension. Alara and Elias monitored it from the observation deck of the Helios station, the glass beneath their feet trembling with every pulse. "It's responding," Alara said, her voice taut with urgency. "Not just the planet, us, our movements, our fear, our anger. It reacts to everything. We cannot predict it, only adapt." Elias swallowed hard. "Adapt, we're just people. How can we?" "You survive because you refuse to give up." Alara cut in, her eyes fierce. "Fear is a tool. Desperation is a weapon. And humanity fights back when cornered. That is our edge." Below, Gideon organized the first frontline efforts. Teams of soldiers and volunteers moved with precision, forming barricades, clearing rubble, and guiding civilians away from collapsing zones. Yet no plan could fully prepare them for the anomaly's first direct strike. It began subtly, a low, vibrating hum that resonated through the bones. Then came the first surge. A wave of raw energy erupted from the sky, splitting the air with a thunderous crack. Windows shattered in an instant. Concrete splintered. Vehicles toppled as if swept by a colossal hand. People screamed, some falling to the ground, others frozen in awe and terror. Gideon barked orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Hold the line. Keep moving, civilians. Do not panic." But panic was infectious. The line of humans wavered under the raw force. Some froze, some ran blindly, and the rest pressed forward, driven by the raw instinct to survive. In the metro station, Mara felt the tremor through the floor beneath her feet. Dust rained down from above, and cries of pain and fear filled the air. She gripped the boy tighter, scanning for anyone who needed help. A young woman stumbled nearby, her ankle twisted. Mara ran to her side. "Can you walk?" she asked. I think so," the woman stammered. "Then take my arm," Mara instructed. We moved together. Outside, the anomaly's pulse intensified. It was no longer just a force of nature. It was a presence, a living, conscious threat. Its light coiled like a serpent across the skyline, striking with precision and unpredictability. Entire streets vanished in moments, swallowed by cracks in the earth that hissed with heat. Alara gritted her teeth as she monitored the readings. "It's testing us," she murmured, "learning our patterns, our weaknesses, but every time it strikes, it also gives us a chance to fight back, to survive. We must be smarter, faster, united." Elias nodded, determination hardening his features. "Then we adapt. We use what we know. Humanity has never faced anything like this, and yet here we are, still standing." Gideon's team fought with everything they had. Soldiers armed with technology designed for disaster relief tried to redirect energy flows, stabilize crumbling infrastructure, and shield civilians. Volunteers ran messages, guided families, and refused to yield even when buildings collapsed around them. Every act of courage was a spark against the overwhelming darkness. Mara, the little boy in her arms, and the small group she guided emerged from the subway into a temporary clearing. They could see the anomaly's pulse hitting a distant skyscraper, toppling it like a toy. She trembled, but her resolve hardened. "We survive," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "We survive because we must." Alara's voice came over the communication network. "Everyone focus on helping each other. The anomaly thrives on fear, but it cannot touch our will to protect one another. That is our weapon. That is humanity's fury." And in that moment, the first clash was not merely with the anomaly itself, but with the fear that threatened to consume them all. Humanity's fury was rising not in spite of the destruction, but because of it. The sky pulsed again, stronger this time. And yet every act of courage below, every hand extended, every life saved, every whisper of hope became a counterstrike. Humanity had been warned and ignored the signs. Now it would answer with something far more powerful than fear, its indomitable will to survive. The first battle had been fought, and for the first time, there was a glimmer of something extraordinary. Humanity was not just enduring, it was awakening. The sun struggled to pierce the thick veil of smoke and dust that blanketed Solhaven. Streets once teeming with life now lay fractured and empty, broken like a mirror reflecting a city that no longer existed. Yet amidst the ruin, life clung stubbornly to existence. Humans moved through the debris with a mixture of fear, hope, and determination, a strange cocktail of emotions that carried them forward. Mara led her small group through the devastated streets, her steps careful, alert. The little boy she carried was quiet now, exhausted from hours of running and fear. Families huddled in corners, sharing scraps of food and water, whispering stories of survival like prayers. "This way," Mara urged, pointing toward a partially standing hospital that could serve as a temporary shelter. "We need to get higher ground. Somewhere safe. For now." The anomaly's pulse had not ceased. Every few minutes the sky would flare with cobalt and silver light, sending shockwaves through the city. Buildings crumbled, streets split, and the earth groaned as if lamenting humanity's negligence. Yet, there were signs of defiance. Small fires had been set strategically by citizens to illuminate paths and signal for help. Soldiers and volunteers moved like ghosts through the wreckage, coordinating survivors and stabilizing weak structures. Gideon, ever the strategist, had established makeshift command centers across the city. Radios crackled with updates, instructions, and messages of hope. Humanity refused to be entirely passive. In one such command hub, Alara and Elias studied the anomaly's patterns. Charts flickered across screens showing energy pulses, directional vectors, and unpredictable shifts. "It's learning faster than we anticipated," Alara said, rubbing her temples. "But every action we take, every moment we protect civilians, forces it to react. It's testing our resilience, measuring our will." Elias frowned. "We can't just survive. We have to find a way to fight back, to strike a balance, to reclaim control." Alara's gaze hardened. "Then we use humanity itself. Not weapons, not machines, people, courage, cooperation, ingenuity. Every time someone saves a life, every time someone refuses to give in to despair, the anomaly encounters resistance it cannot predict." Meanwhile, Mara and her group reached the hospital. The building, though scarred and cracked, offered temporary sanctuary. Inside, survivors tended to the wounded with the few supplies they could salvage. Mara knelt beside a man whose arm had been trapped under a beam. "We'll get it out," she said, voice firm yet soothing. "You're not alone." The man's eyes, filled with pain, flickered with gratitude. "Thank you. I thought I was done." Mara smiled faintly. "Not while we're still standing." Outside, Gideon coordinated a rescue team. "Move the injured from the collapsed zones. Secure the perimeter. Keep communication lines open. We cannot allow fear to dictate our actions." His orders were precise, almost surgical. Each decision carried weight, but he bore it with unwavering resolve. For the first time, the anomaly's strike seemed less random. Patterns emerged in its pulses, subtle yet noticeable. Alara and Elias noticed the anomaly's energy focusing on zones with concentrated human activity, proof that the entity responded to life, to courage, to the will to endure. "This means it fears us," Elias whispered, awe threading his voice. Alara nodded, determination blazing in her eyes. "Not fear, respect. It knows that humanity will not bow. It knows we fight, even when every chance of survival seems impossible." Mara moved through the hospital corridors, encouraging the weak, lifting spirits and orchestrating small acts of courage, guiding children to safe rooms, ensuring water distribution and calming panicked survivors. She realized something profound. Humanity's fury wasn't in brute force. It was in connection, empathy, and unwavering hope. As night fell, the anomaly pulsed brighter than ever. Its energy waves rolled across the city like an unstoppable tide. Yet in that same darkness, lights flickered in windows, fires burned in strategic points, and the determined hum of human activity rose as a counterpoint to chaos. Gideon stood on a rooftop overlooking the city. His gaze swept across the destruction, then settled on the scattered pockets of resistance below. "We may be small," he muttered to himself, "but we are relentless, and that is our power." Alara joined him, her expression calm yet fierce. "Every life saved, every act of courage. It builds a force the anomaly cannot destroy. Humanity's fury isn't just survival, it's defiance, and it is unstoppable." In the shadows of a world unmade, a spark of hope endured. From the rubble, humans rose, fragile yet unbroken. They would face devastation, despair, and unimaginable challenges. Yet their spirit, their unity, and their fury were already awakening. The first night after the anomaly's arrival passed, and when the sun rose again, the world would see that humanity did not simply endure, it adapted, fought, and prepared to rise higher than ever before. Because those who ignored the warning would now witness humanity's true strength. A fury born not from hatred or violence, but from the unshakable will to survive, protect, and rise above impossible odds. Dawn broke over Solhaven like a hesitant promise. The city was scarred yet alive. Fractured streets and toppled buildings stood as monuments to both disaster and defiance. Survivors stirred from temporary shelters, their faces marked by exhaustion but illuminated with determination. Humanity had endured the first wave of fury, and now a new phase had begun, fighting back. Mara moved through the streets, her small group growing as others joined them. Each survivor carried a story of courage, of someone rescued, of someone refusing to give in to despair. They were no longer just running from destruction. They were reclaiming their city brick by brick, life by life. Stay close, Mara instructed. We move as one. Look out for each other and nothing can stop us. Gideon, coordinating from a command hub in a partially intact skyscraper, had developed the first organized response. Teams were dispatched to stabilize critical areas, rescue squads for trapped civilians, engineers to reinforce buildings, and scouts to map the anomaly's patterns. We can't destroy it, Gideon told his officers, voice sharp with authority. But we can outmaneuver it. We can survive, and in surviving we strike back. Above the city, the anomaly pulsed with fury, sensing every act of resistance. Its energy flared, sending waves through streets and skyscrapers alike. For a moment, panic surged among the humans below. People froze, hearts pounding, unsure if courage alone could withstand such a force. Then Mara lifted her voice, firm and unwavering. Do not stop. Keep moving. Every life you save is a strike against fear. Every act of courage is a blow to despair. Her words rippled through the city. Soldiers, volunteers, and civilians alike found renewed strength. The anomaly's strikes became less effective, not because the humans were stronger physically, but because they refused to yield emotionally. Alara and Elias monitored the anomaly from the Helios station. It's adapting, Alara said. It reacts to fear, to chaos, but it cannot predict empathy, courage, or unity. These are our weapons. Elias studied the screens, eyes wide. We're not just surviving. We're teaching it, resisting it in ways it cannot anticipate. The first coordinated human counterattack began with small tactical strikes. Teams guided civilians out of danger zones, set controlled fires to redirect energy pulses, and reinforced structures to withstand the anomaly's assault. Every move was calculated yet brave, often relying on improvisation, human instinct, and sheer willpower. Mara found herself leading a group through a partially collapsed bridge. Below, rushing water carried debris, the roar drowning out their voices. One of the survivors, a young man named Liam, froze at the edge. I can't. I'm too afraid, he whispered, panic tightening his chest. You can, Mara said firmly, gripping his arm. You are not alone. Step by step, one foot in front of the other. Together we rise. He nodded, swallowing fear, and followed her across the bridge. Every step was a victory, a small counterstrike against the anomaly's overwhelming presence. Meanwhile, Gideon's teams had discovered a pattern. The anomaly's pulses, while destructive, had intervals, moments of vulnerability. Using these gaps, humans began constructing protective zones, moving civilians to safer areas, and even attempting to redirect the anomaly's energy toward uninhabited zones. Alara's voice cut through the communication network. Calm yet commanding, focus on strategy, adapt, protect, strike when possible. Humanity's fury is not raw force, it is intelligence, resilience, and heart combined. Every saved life, every courageous act, it diminishes its power. The first tangible success came in the late afternoon. A team, using makeshift barricades and synchronized movement, redirected an energy surge away from a residential block. Windows shattered, but no lives were lost. The survivors cheered quietly, voices trembling but proud. It was a small victory, but monumental in significance. Humanity could resist. In the temporary hospital, Mara and the boy watched as teams returned, triumphant yet weary. Each person carried stories of rescue and perseverance. She realized something profound. The anomaly could destroy buildings, split streets, and shatter the city. But it could not extinguish human spirit. Elias, standing beside Alara, glanced at the live feeds. "It's learning," he murmured. "It knows we fight back, and yet it hasn't overcome us," Alara nodded. "Because humanity's fury is not just reaction. It is creation, connection, defiance. We rise not for revenge, but because we refuse to be broken." Night fell again over Solhaven, but it no longer brought despair. Fires glowed in windows. Voices echoed in shelters, and small patrols moved with purpose through the city. Humanity had endured. Humanity had adapted. Humanity had struck back. The anomaly's pulses still rumbled across the skyline, but now they met resistance. Not complete, not enough to stop devastation, but resistance nonetheless. And resistance was enough. From the ashes, from fear and despair, a new truth emerged. The first human counterstrike had succeeded. The battle was far from over, but humanity had found its fury. And for the first time, it was tangible, unstoppable, and alive. And in that fury, hope burned brighter than any fire the anomaly could unleash. The city of Solhaven had become a battlefield unlike any before. The anomaly's pulses grew sharper, faster, more precise, as if it had learned the rhythms of human resilience. Every street, every building, every shadow seemed under its watchful, unyielding presence. Yet humanity persisted, striking back with ingenuity, courage, and unwavering will. Mara moved through a narrow alley, carrying the little boy she had shielded since the first tremors. Around her, the air buzzed with residual energy from the anomaly's pulses. Broken glass crunched beneath her boots. Dust hung thick, making every breath an effort. Behind her, a small group of survivors followed. Each step a silent declaration, "We will not yield." "This way," Mara whispered, guiding them toward a partially collapsed factory that had been converted into a refuge. "It's not perfect, but it's safer. Stay close and do not panic." Fear was an almost tangible force in the air, but even as the anomaly's destructive energy flared overhead, small sparks of defiance ignited everywhere. Volunteers carried the injured, soldiers organized patrols, and civilians worked tirelessly to reinforce weak structures. Humanity's fury had evolved. It was no longer reactive, but deliberate. In the command hub, Gideon studied the anomaly's energy signatures. "It adapts faster than anticipated," he said, frustration threading his voice. "Every tactic we deploy, it counters almost immediately. But we can't stop. We must push forward even if the cost is high." Alara and Elias monitored the anomaly from the Helios station, where the tremors made even the thick, reinforced glass groan. "It's testing endurance now," Alara said quietly. "It's not just destruction, it's psychological. Every life saved, every small victory is a rebellion, and it is learning from us faster than we realize." Elias frowned. "Do you think it can be defeated?" Alara's eyes were steady. "Not in the conventional sense. It doesn't understand defeat the way we do. But it can be countered, outmaneuvered, and most importantly, it can be resisted. Humanity has the one thing it cannot calculate: heart, courage, connection." As night fell, the anomaly's assault intensified. Energy pulses struck in unpredictable patterns, toppling buildings, rupturing streets, and scattering survivors. Mara and her group huddled in the factory, tending to minor injuries and comforting frightened children. She glanced at the boy she carried, his wide eyes reflecting both fear and trust. "We're safe for now," she whispered. "We survived together." Outside, Gideon led a squad on a daring operation. Their goal was to create a protective barrier, using remaining infrastructure and coordinated energy redirection. Every moment was a gamble, every action a test of resolve. Soldiers fell, civilians screamed, but the barricades held, absorbing the anomaly's fury long enough for others to escape. In the hub, Alara noticed a subtle shift in the anomaly's patterns. "It's focusing on our strongest points," she said. "It recognizes leadership, coordination. It knows where our resistance is most effective." Elias's jaw tightened. "Then it's learning, evolving against us. The harder we fight, the more intelligent it becomes." Alara nodded. "Exactly. But we are humans. Our strength is not in raw power. It is in adaptation, creativity, and heart. We must use that. Every life saved, every act of defiance, every spark of hope, it chips away at its advantage." Mara moved through the shadows of the factory, helping survivors navigate the debris outside. The wind carried a faint electric hum, the pulse of the anomaly moving like a predator circling its prey. Yet even amid fear, humans refused to cower. They shared water, reassured one another, and whispered courage into trembling ears. Humanity's fury was no longer just a defense. It was an offensive in its purest form, unyielding spirit. Gideon's voice crackled over the communication network. All units, hold your positions. Reinforce the safe zones. Remember, every life we save is a victory. A massive pulse erupted moments later, shaking the city violently. Windows shattered, streets split, and a skyscraper groaned under the strain. But within the chaos, humans moved with purpose, rescuing, guiding, and persevering. Alara watched the feeds, her heart heavy yet fierce. We are being tested in every possible way, she said. Emotionally, mentally, physically, but this is when humanity reveals its true nature. Our fury is not anger, it is resilience. It is defiance. It is the refusal to be extinguished. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Do you think we can make it through this? Alara's gaze swept across the city. Fires burned, buildings trembled, and yet below humans rose to meet every challenge. We will, she said, because we must. Humanity does not yield, humanity endures, and humanity will rise. Night deepened, but with it came a quiet revelation. For the first time, the anomaly's strike seemed less omnipotent, less absolute. Humanity's fury had reached a new stage, not reckless defiance, but deliberate, intelligent resistance. And in the heart of Soul Haven, amid smoke, rubble, and trembling souls, a single truth shone brighter than any fire or pulse. Even at the edge of despair, humanity refuses to be broken. The battle was far from over. The cost was high. The threat immense, but the spirit of humanity had awakened in a way no warning, no anomaly, no force could erase. The first light of dawn struggled to penetrate the haze over Soul Haven, but it did not matter. Humanity had already awakened. The city, though battered and scarred, was alive with movement, determination, and defiance. The anomaly pulsed in the sky above like a living storm, massive, incomprehensible, and relentless. But below, humans moved with a purpose it could not calculate: hope, courage, and unity. Mara led her group through the streets, now a network of barricades, safe zones, and improvised shelters. Every survivor she guided, every life she saved, strengthened the invisible web of resistance that stretched across the city. She glanced at the boy in her arms. We've made it this far, she whispered. Now we finish this together. From the command hub, Gideon orchestrated humanity's final coordinated effort. Teams of soldiers, volunteers, engineers, and civilians moved like a single organism, responding with precision, courage, and instinct. Every barricade, every rescue, every signal was part of a larger plan, to force the anomaly into a confrontation it could not anticipate. Alara and Elias monitored the anomaly's energy pulses. They had learned enough to see patterns, subtle weaknesses amid the chaos. It's reacting to every act of defiance, Alara said, voice firm. Every life saved, every moment of courage, it disrupts its focus. Humanity's fury is not just resistance, it is power. Elias's eyes widened. We've been fighting, and all this time, it's learning from us. And yet we're shaping the battlefield now. We can control it. Gideon's voice crackled over radios, calm yet commanding. All units focus on synchronization. Push forward. Protect the vulnerable. Strike as one. Humanity does not retreat. Humanity does not yield. Humanity rises. The anomaly's pulse flared in response, striking with ferocity unmatched before. Buildings shuddered, streets split, and waves of energy rolled through the city. Yet, for the first time, humans did not run. They advanced, coordinated, and endured. Mara helped a group across a fractured bridge, her voice steady as she shouted instructions. Children, terrified yet trusting, followed her lead. Adults carried the injured, refused to leave anyone behind, and moved with a rhythm born of collective courage. In the heart of the city, Gideon's team completed a daring maneuver. Using remaining infrastructure and controlled energy pulses, they redirected a massive strike toward an uninhabited zone. The anomaly roared, but the move revealed something incredible. It could not fully adapt to a coordinated, intelligent, and courageous force acting as one. Humanity's fury was no longer a single spark. It had become an unstoppable blaze. Alara's hands flew over controls, mapping new strategies and giving directives. Every act of empathy, every act of courage, it is a strike against it. We are not powerless. We are human, and humanity cannot be broken. Elias watched the city below. It's faltering. Not defeated, but faltering. Our defiance is stronger than its attacks. Mara reached the top of a rubble-strewn hill, looking out over the city. Fires still burned, buildings still trembled, and the sky pulsed like a living heart. Yet beneath the chaos, humans were everywhere, rescuing, guiding, protecting, and defying. Her heart swelled. "We rise," she whispered. The anomaly pulsed one last time, brighter and more violent than ever, as if realizing its previous dominance had been challenged. Energy waves crashed across Solhaven, yet humans held firm. Soldiers, volunteers, families, and children all moved in unison, their courage forming an invisible shield the anomaly could not penetrate. Gideon raised a hand over the comms. "Stand firm. Humanity rises together." And then a shift occurred. The anomaly's pulses slowed, faltered, and eventually stabilized. The energy that had torn streets apart now shimmered harmlessly in the distance, like a storm finally exhausted. Humanity had not destroyed it, but they had endured, adapted, and imposed their will through courage, ingenuity, and unity. The survivors looked around at the city. Cracks marred the streets, buildings leaned precariously, but humanity stood. The anomaly lingered above, vast and incomprehensible, yet it no longer radiated threat. Instead, it seemed to acknowledge the force it could not overcome. Mara knelt beside the boy, embracing him tightly. "We did it," she said, tears mingling with soot and sweat. "We survived." We rose. Gideon stood on a rooftop surveying the city. "We were warned," he said softly, voice carrying across the comms. "We ignored it, and we paid a price. But in the end, we showed that humanity's fury is not anger or destruction. It is resilience, courage, and unity. We cannot be broken." Alara looked out from the Helios station, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We've faced what was thought unstoppable. We've endured fear, loss, and devastation, and we are still standing. Humanity's fury is alive. It is extraordinary. It is eternal." The anomaly pulsed gently for a final moment, then retreated beyond the horizon. The city remained in ruins, but the people who survived stood taller than ever. Humanity had been tested in every way imaginable, and it had risen. In that moment, every survivor felt it, a profound, unshakable truth. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity endures. Humanity rises even from the ashes of devastation, and in their hearts, the fury that had carried them through the storm burned brighter than any fear. A fury born not of vengeance, but of life itself, a testament to the extraordinary, unyielding spirit of humanity. The world had warned them. They ignored it, but now humanity's fury had awakened, and nothing would ever be the same again.